The 2023 Thunderbolts miniseries mostly achieves what it sets out to do, establishing a new team led by Bucky Barnes that closely matches the makeup and tone of what we saw in the new Thunderbolts movie. While I certainly wouldn't consider this one of my favorite things that I've read from Marvel in the past 5 years, given the fact that it's only 4 issues long, it's certainly a fun read if you're just looking for something quick and short, and so for that, I would recommend it, even though it goes a little bit off the rails. Let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of this miniseries. I'm Brennan for the New Wave Nerds. Like and subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary. Now let's roll the intro. Alright, so this new Thunderbolts miniseries is written by Collin Kelly and Jackson Lanzing and is penciled by Geraldo Borges. Now, as always, we're going to begin with a brief non-spoiler review. This comic series is absolutely crazy. I didn't really know what to expect going into this, but it certainly, I don't want to say exceeded my expectations because that comes with a positive connotation, but it certainly blew my expectations out of the water. Now, I must admit, I didn't really like the content of the story all that much. I felt like it was much too short, and it was just a little bit over the top in how, and this may sound a little bit weird, but how comic booky it was. It was absolutely crazy, but I do like the makeup of the team that we have here. It is fun. Of course, we get to see Bucky in his new Revolution suit that he just got a couple years ago. Although at the time of this was released, I think it was either this year or the year before it. But in any case, it was relatively recently. I love that series, I love that costume. I think it's a great look for Bucky Barnes. And I will say the art throughout is enjoyable. Not my favorite piece of art. Nothing about this comic book makes it one of the best things that I've read in a while, but it is certainly fun. Now, before we get into the spoiler section, I'm going to politely ask you all to head on over to patreon.com/newwavenerds. We're doing a little patron drive where if we get 15 new subscribers or $50 a month, that'll just about cover our podcast hosting costs. Then we are going to be releasing a special episode, a special series of episodes, where Shade and I are going to be going over the entire DC Comics event, Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue by issue. I've read it before, but this will be Shade's first time going through the series, so there's going to be a lot of fun conversation going on there, but you're only going to be able to see that if you head on over to patreon.com/newwavenerds or click the link in the description. Now, let's get into the spoiler section. Like I said, I do more or less actually enjoy the team makeup here. Like I mentioned in the beginning, it is led by Bucky Barnes. We also have the Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. We see Sharon Carter as the Destroyer. We get Yelena Belova as the White Widow. Natasha Romanoff as the Black Widow, who interestingly enough, I suppose, has a Venom symbiote at this time. We also get to see Red Guardian, US Agent, and Shang-Chi. I think the crew itself is kind of fun. They have good chemistry in there. And I love any series where we get to see Bucky interact with Natasha Romanoff or Natasha Romanoff. I don't know. Her name in the comics is different, and I can never remember it because the MCU is so ingrained in my brain. And to be honest, I haven't really read all that much Black Widow stuff by herself. But I like to see the two of them play off each other. They have a really unique and interesting relationship that goes back a very, very long time in the comic books. And I think it's really, really interesting. And like I said, this team in this makeup really closely mirrors what we see in the movie. It's a very jokey team. There's lots of comedy here. And there are some additions that in this series that I think would have been good choices for the movie, right? I mean, obviously we got Sharon Carter here, which I talked about on our Thunderbolts movie review. Go ahead and check that out. It came out last Tuesday. I can't believe she wasn't in the movie. I think she would have been an obvious choice. Now, if you're going to put her in the movie, I would say don't put her as the Destroyer like she is in this comic series, But it would have been nice to see her and sort of have the interaction between her and Bucky Barnes again. I think that would have been very, very fun. Plus, presumably, she has had interactions with the Contessa Valentina in the past. Though I don't remember off the top of my head if we've ever actually seen them interact, because I don't think the last we really see of Sharon Carter, she is walking down the steps after regaining her job, and she's just on the phone talking with some unnamed person. So we haven't seen them interact directly, but it's a very obvious link. It's not exactly a leap of logic there to say that they have had dealings in the past. I would have liked to have seen that. I also would have liked to have seen Shang-Chi. Now, he as a character, as we see in the MCU, wouldn't have meshed with this team very well. It obviously is completely divorced from the only connecting link between all of these characters in the movie. But I miss Shang-Chi. Simu Liu did really good in The Legend of the Ten Rings. That movie was great. I'm still upset that we haven't seen a sequel yet. And I can't imagine it's going to happen anytime soon because the director is now moving on to, I believe, Secret Wars. Or maybe he was attached and he's not doing it anymore. I don't know. In any case, Shang-Chi wouldn't have made any sense in the movie, but I just really, really want to see him back on the screen again. And because of this comic, it just, it would have, you could have found some way to work it in. I don't know. It would have been difficult and it wouldn't have made sense, but it would have been cool. It would have been cool. But I do really like the team here. I think they've got good chemistry. Again, like I mentioned on our Thunderbolts movie review, I'm not necessarily super into the merry band of misfits type of storytelling. And so for that reason, this comic book did fall a little bit flat for me. But I could see how somebody who is really into that would like to read this. And that's why I think, if you really, really enjoyed the movie, then maybe this is a good comic series for you. If you're just looking to get into the comics after being just an MCU person, this is maybe a good place to start. If for no other reason than the fact that it's just simply 4 issues. It's very, very short. Now, I did mention earlier that in the current Marvel Comics continuity, Black Widow has a Venom symbiote, which I think makes sense thematically, given the name Black Widow. It obviously makes a lot of sense to sort of connect her to the Spider family. I just don't like it at all. I think it doesn't make any sense. And maybe if I had read the comic wherein it happened, I would feel differently. But I think that there are not enough just regular spies in the Marvel Universe, especially in the MCU, but in the Marvel Comics universe as well. I feel like there is a habit, and this is, again, going to sound kind of stupid because they're superhero comics, but there is a habit for people who are just everyday humans who are secret agents to go into the realm of superheroism, and I don't necessarily really like that. That's my big complaint about the Black Widow movie, is that it's not a spy movie, it's a superhero movie, and I really just wanted to see something spy-like, especially from the Black Widow character. So that's something I don't like, but that's not necessarily a knock on this comic book. Because like I said, clearly that has been established in continuity before this. I just simply do not like it. And yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just really weird to me. I do like the way that it plays out in the story, though. Like I said, I think it makes sense thematically, and it looks really cool. But I just don't like that it's Natasha Romanoff. I don't like it. I think she should be a spy, and she should stay a spy. That is one of the fundamental aspects of her character. I don't know if she needs to be a superhero. And then I'm also a little bit biased because I'm not a huge Venom guy, and I don't like the sort of proliferation that Venom and the symbiote have had throughout the entire Marvel universe. I think when you do something like King in Black, it's okay for that moment to have sort of everybody be affected by the various symbiotes. But once you finish a story like that, I think it should kind of go back in the box a little bit. I think every new character who has a symbiote or every new character who is a spider person detracts from the underlying mythos there. It's the same feeling that I have about Galactus. You know, he is this big bad guy, and in the beginning, it's like you bring him in having no idea how to beat him, and now Marvel has sort of gotten into a place where it's like every year or every couple of years they'll bring Galactus back, and it'll be like in a solo series, and it'll just be super easy to beat him. Like I think Squirrel Girl has fought Galactus and beat him, and to me, that's the dumbest thing in the world. There are a few instances where I think it works out okay, like in the King Thor stuff from Jason Aaron. I don't think it's in the actual mainline or the named King Thor series. I think it's in his regular Thor run. I think so. And I think it's after Gore the God Butcher, but before Lady Thor. I think. I don't know. I could be a little unclear on the timeline. I just don't. And, you know, we get to a place where it's, you know, we've Galactus has been around for, almost 60 years, you know, somewhere in that neighborhood. So it's like you reach that level. But I don't know. It's just something that I've noticed throughout Marvel comics specifically lately. And I'm sure DC has done things like this as well that I've noticed. Oh, good example on the DC side, the Court of Owls. I love the Court of Owls. When they were introduced, it was one of the things that got me hooked on Batman. But since Scott Snyder's run in the New 52, it seems like there are just too many stories where the Court of Owls are like playing their hand. I feel like the point of it is that they are like this shadowy organization that maybe they have their hand in everything, but you don't see. Like you build something up for like 5 years, and then eventually you reveal that everything has been at the behest of the Court of Owls, something like that. But I don't know. Let's get back to this Thunderbolts comic series, which we're actually here to review. That's enough of my just general comic ramblings. I do like that this series is essentially all about, well, it's not essentially, it is literally all about taking down the Red Skull. And I think it's done in a relatively interesting way. In the first issue, right, we are in the spoiler section here. I'm pretty sure I said that earlier, but we are in the spoiler section. In the first issue, they kill the Red Skull. And then, you know, throughout the rest of the issues, they find out that the Red Skull isn't actually dead, right? And then, in the fourth issue, they kill him for good. And I really like the way that ties into some of the current stuff, but I'm going to save that for a little bit later. I like this because Red Skull is a fairly decent Marvel villain. I don't know if he works against anybody outside of the Captain America realm. And I think Bucky Barnes is like just the line of that. Is just the line of that, right? Because Bucky Barnes obviously has a deep relationship with the Red Skull through his connection to Cap over the years, and especially in his time as the Winter Soldier, because of the Ed Brubaker run. I mean, the reason that Bucky is around today is because of the machinations of the Red Skull. I think it's really interesting. I don't necessarily like the way that they couch it because it's comic books, and so they go into this thing saying, you know, this is going to be the final end of the Red Skull, and they kill him in the first issue, but then he's back in the fourth issue. He's back immediately. And so it's one of those things where it's like, of course, we know it's comic books, so that we know he's going to come back at some point, no matter what. And it could be in a reboot, or it could just be in the regular continued continuity. That was a weird phrase. But to do that in these 4 issues sort of like belittles the point a little bit. You know, it hits home. If you didn't kill him in the first issue and then bring him back, then at least there's a level of removal, I suppose, where you're like, oh man, maybe the Red Skull's going to be gone for a little while. But if you kill him and then bring him back just to kill him again, you're like subconsciously saying, oh, don't worry, the Red Skull's going to be back in like 6 issues time. You know, after One World Under Doom, I'm sure in some capacity the Red Skull is going to be back. And I think it's a weird choice. And again, granted, we know that the Red Skull is always going to return because it's comic books. But I think if you're going to couch the series on bringing a final end to one of the, you know, Marvel Universe's oldest villains, then you kind of have to at least pretend that there's going to be an air of finality here. And you don't get that in the last issue because of the fact that they already kill him 3 issues before that. Now, I do want to say my major complaint with this series is simply the fact that it's so short. It is only 4 issues long. I think it needs 8 or 12. I think it needs to be double or triple the size, because each issue is so far removed from the one immediately before it. It's in a completely different setting. And of course, they're all moving towards the same goal, so they're obviously still connected. But they are all so removed that I would have liked to have seen in at least an extra issue, but maybe an extra 2 issues exploring each setting. You know, like the first issue, like I said, we kill Bucky Barnes here, or we kill the Red Skull here, and the issue just basically opens. It doesn't literally open because you see this interaction between Bucky and Valentina, but the actual substance of the issue is just we suddenly show up in Argentina, where Sharon Carter is using intel that she got from Bucky off panel to attack the Red Skull and destroy his base, right? And then issue number 2, again, with no build-up whatsoever, they kill the Red Skull, and so we sort of join a mission like in media res, where they are in the Hellfire Club trying to gain access to the gold, or to the wealth that was accumulated by Red Skull over the years. And it's one issue in this, the Hellfire Club. It could have used another issue or 2, set up the thing, right? It actually makes it slightly impactful rather than just basically like a one and done type story. I really would have liked to have seen the relationship explored between Bucky Barnes and Wilson Fisk, because they just had an interaction not that long ago that left Bucky almost dead. So like actually maybe deal with that a little bit when you've got these 2 characters here. You know, when Bucky is attacking the organization that Kingpin is in charge of, maybe you should play off some of their recent history beyond just like a single line. You know, if we're going to do like this sort of heist thing, maybe spend some time setting it up. I don't know, maybe do some intel gathering. I don't know, just do something maybe. It's weird. And then the 3rd issue is just completely preposterous. The 3rd issue at this point can literally just be completely cut out, because the only thing of import that happens here is we pick up US Agent and we pick up Shang-Chi, right? But that's it. I mean, everything else is like sort of ancillary. You could remove it from the story and you wouldn't lose anything. You could cut the entire 3rd issue and put the scene where Shang-Chi and US Agent join up with Bucky at the end of issue 2, and you wouldn't lose anything. In fact, I think you might actually gain something, because the actual content of issue 3 is so divorced from what we see in the first 2 issues and even the last issue that it completely it breaks everything for me. So we're in Hong Kong, again, with no setup. We're in Hong Kong, and long story short, you could see on the cover, if you're looking at it, it's Thunderbolts 2023, issue number 3. It's a giant Bucky Barnes fighting Godzilla with the American flag on his chest. And you know what this character's name is? American Kaiju. Now, I didn't know that this character existed, and to be honest with you, I wish that I didn't know they existed now. It's pointless, it's dumb, it doesn't add anything to the story, it is completely divorced from everything else. Like I've said, up until this point, the first 2 issues are relatively grounded. They're relatively grounded. I mean, obviously, we've got a lady with a symbiote, an alien attached to her body that lets her shoot webs. And there's a part where we jump into basically the inside of a guy whose power is to like have a vault within his body. It's crazy, right? It's crazy, but it's relatively grounded compared to the fact that the 3rd issue is fighting Godzilla. And the way that they fight him and beat him is absolutely ridiculous. Shang-Chi gives Bucky Barnes a bracelet that lets him grow to like 75 or 100 feet tall so that he can battle Godzilla. I'm going to let that sink in a little bit. Bucky Barnes gets a MacGuffin from Shang-Chi that makes it so that he can grow to 100 feet tall to battle Godzilla. Has it sunk in enough? Like, that's just, it's so stupid to me. It's so stupid. And again, it would be different. Like, I would still not like the idea, but if it at least added something to the story, then maybe I'd be down for it. But it doesn't add anything to the story because, again, it's one issue. The only thing that they play off of that actually connects to the rest of this series is the fact that, like, Red Skull has somehow had Hydra sleeper agents within the US government. But that happens in like a panel. It happens in like a panel, and then the rest of it is fighting Godzilla. You know, like, why wouldn't you, at bare minimum, why wouldn't you have another issue before this where Bucky learns that there are Hydra sleeper agents? And that issue ends with him learning that one of the agents who's been compromised is this guy who can turn into Godzilla, and then have the Godzilla fight. Then it would actually kind of be related to the story, but it's really not. It strikes as the kind of idea where they were like, hey, we've got this idea for a 100-foot tall Bucky to fight Godzilla, but we don't know where to put it. And they were like, well, why don't we just do it here? And we'll just try and make it work afterwards. It's dumb. It's stupid. It's absolutely preposterous. You know, and then we get to the fourth issue, which I think is probably the strongest issue. And this is where the events of the series, like, this is the only moment where they actually, like, kind of matter, because it directly ties into stuff that is currently going on, the One World Under Doom event. Basically, Bucky learns that the Red Skull is in Latveria, and he's not, obviously nobody's allowed to go there because Doom doesn't allow any outside forces to act within the borders of Latveria. He extends, complete sovereignty over the region and doesn't want anybody else, interfering with his stuff. And so nobody's allowed in, but of course the Thunderbolts sneak in and they manipulate Doom into killing the Red Skull for them. That's such an interesting story beat. It's a very, very interesting issue. But again, it's the type of thing where it's like, I don't know why you wouldn't, like, say something like this in the first issue. I don't know why you wouldn't have this running theme throughout the whole series that, like, Red Skull is in Doom. Or excuse me, Red Skull is in Latveria. And so they're trying to, like, figure out how to get into Latveria, or, like, trying to negotiate with Doom so they can have, like, a joint task force or something like this. Try as they might, even though if it doesn't happen, then you get to the fourth issue and it's a little bit satisfying. Now, of course, the way that the series is laid out right now, they don't know initially that the Red Skull is in Latveria. They don't learn it until the end of, I think, the third issue. Or maybe it's the end of the second issue. But it's just like a one-panel thing where Valentina is like, she tells him, and Bucky's like, F word. Like, that's it. They don't spend any time building up to it. That's such a big complaint that I have, because again, I think this series has potential. I think it could have been interesting if it were 8 or 12 issues. I like the way that it leads into One World Under Doom. And I like the opening conceit, but the actual conception, or excuse me, the closest word I can think of is application, but I don't think that's quite the word I'm looking for. In practice, we'll put it out. In practice, I don't think it works. Because this strikes to me as the type of thing where they're like, we have this story for this Thunderbolt series, and they were going to do it, but then they got word from on high, or there were some, decisions being made that resulted in the fact that the next major thing was going to be One World Under Doom, and it was happening right now. And so none of it really gets to play out in a satisfying way. You know what I mean? So like I said, I mean, like, if I probably wouldn't recommend this series explicitly unless, like I said, you are a fan of the Thunderbolts movie and want to have something that is relatively similar, or if you're just looking for something quick to read. But this definitely wouldn't be the first comic series that I would recommend to anybody. It wouldn't even be the first series that I would necessarily recommend to somebody who's looking specifically for Thunderbolt stuff. Like, there are other Thunderbolt series that I think are much better done. But I think this one works as a recommendation for somebody who's maybe hasn't read many comics and is just coming off of the MCU, if for no other reason than the fact that it's only 4 issues and it's the closest the team has ever looked and will likely will ever look to what we actually see in the movie. But I read this twice in preparation for this episode, and to be honest with you, I wish that I hadn't taken the time. It's, even though it's short, there were times, well, when I got to the end, I was like, man, why did I, choose to read this? Why did the movie have to come out now when we've only got this one series that matches the team? But I don't know. I think that's where we're going to end it there, on that absolutely glowing and stellar review, 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know. I think if I were going to give this comic a rating, I'd probably give it like a 3, 2.5 or a 3. But yeah, we're going to leave it there. This is the last we're going to be talking about explicitly Marvel for a little while. Let's see. Next Tuesday, we're going to be back to talk Andor Season 2. That's right. I'm excited. I haven't started it yet at this point. But I'm really, really excited. I'm recording this video a ways out in advance. I'm really excited to watch Andor 2. Andor 1 was one of my favorite TV shows the year that it came out. It's so incredibly well done. I cannot wait, and I'm just glad to actually have some more Star Wars stuff. And then next Thursday, we're going to be talking about an undisclosed Star Wars comic, and it's undisclosed because I haven't decided which one I'm going to do yet. I'm trying to find one that tied relatively into Andor, so I may do just the Rogue One comic adaptation. So it's like a 6-issue series, and then I'll also add on the Cassian Andor and K2SO special, which is just a single issue. So I'm either going to do that, or I might just try and read something else that's in that period of the reign of the Empire between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, which may or may not be a Darth Vader comic. I haven't decided yet. But by the time you see Andor Season 2, by the time you see our review of Andor Season 2, I will have decided. Let me know down below which of those series you would like me to review, if it's the Rogue One adaptation or a Darth Vader series. Or I was also looking at the Mark Waid Princess Leia series, which technically takes place after A New Hope. But in any case, let me know down below. Make sure that you subscribe so that you never miss another episode. Head on over to patreon.com to help us make these videos even better. And I will see you guys on Tuesday.